Let's be honest, most gardeners spend too much time fussing over compost piles, turning, watering, and babying them like fragile houseplants. Yet, there's a simple, lazy gardener's trick that transforms kitchen scraps, leaves, and even yard waste into rich, black, living soil without all the work. The truth is, nature already knows how to make compost. It's been doing it effortlessly for millions of years. You don't need fancy bins, constant turning, or commercial activators. What you need is a return to how decomposition happens in the wild, right under our feet. And once you get this method going, you'll see your trash turn into black gold faster and with less effort than you ever thought possible. The secret starts with stopping the turning and letting nature do the work. The biggest mistake most gardeners make is trying to control decomposition. When you constantly turn your pile, you break up the natural fungal networks and microbial layers that do the real heavy lifting. The lazy trick flips that thinking literally by letting the pile sit undisturbed. You build it once, layer it right, and let biology handle the rest. The method works best when you start directly on the ground instead of using plastic bins or barrels. The soil underneath acts like a biological bridge, allowing earthworms, fungi, and bacteria to move up into the pile naturally. To begin, lay down a base of rough, carbon-heavy material, dry sticks, twigs, or shredded branches, about 6 inches thick. This base allows airflow from below, which prevents the pile from going anaerobic. Then, you'll alternate between carbon materials, or browns, and nitrogen materials, or greens. The perfect ratio is roughly 2 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen by volume. That means if you dump in 1 bucket of kitchen scraps, you'll want 2 buckets of leaves, shredded cardboard, or straw. The beauty of this lazy system is that you don't have to measure precisely. Close enough works, and nature takes care of the rest. The real magic happens when you layer the right materials in the right order. This is where most people either overcomplicate or completely miss the point. The trick is not in the ingredients, it's in the layering. Start with your dry carbon base, then spread your kitchen scraps evenly on top, followed by another dry layer. Continue this until your pile is about 3 to 4 feet high. Each nitrogen layer should be no more than 3 inches thick to prevent odor or rot. After each layer, lightly water it. You're not trying to soak the pile, just moisten it until it feels like a wrung-out sponge. Water is essential because microbes need a damp environment to thrive. Too dry, and they go dormant. Too wet, and the oxygen disappears, slowing everything down. A simple garden hose mist works best. If you want to accelerate decomposition, sprinkle a thin layer of garden soil or finished compost between each section. This acts as a biological inoculant, adding microbes that jumpstart the breakdown process. You can even pour a small amount of diluted molasses or rice wash water over the pile to feed those microbes in the early stages. It might sound a bit counterintuitive, but leaving your compost untouched actually makes it more efficient. When you stop disturbing it, the pile develops layers of microbial activity. The bottom becomes anaerobic enough to break down tough materials, while the middle stays active with thermophilic or heat-loving bacteria. Meanwhile, the top stays cooler, allowing fungi to colonize and form mycelium networks that convert lignin and cellulose, the woody stuff, into humus. In short, every layer does its job at its own pace, creating a vertical ecosystem that self-regulates. Within 6 to 8 weeks, depending on weather and moisture, you'll start to see the bottom layers turn dark and crumbly. That's your black gold, rich, earthy-smelling compost, teeming with life. Here's where it gets even better. Once your pile begins to settle, you don't need to flip it or move it. You can simply start a new pile next to it and let the old one finish. Over time, the decomposed material will merge with the soil beneath it, feeding it directly and attracting worms and beneficial insects. You'll never have to dig or haul compost again. If you have a small garden or live in an urban area, you can apply the same principle in a mini version called a static compost trench. Just dig a shallow trench, about a foot deep and wide, and fill it with alternating layers of kitchen scraps and dry carbon materials like shredded paper, leaves or straw. Once filled, cover it with 2 inches of soil and mulch. That's it. In 2 months, that trench will have turned into rich black soil filled with earthworms and microbes. You can plant directly above it, and the roots of your crops will tap into the slow-release nutrients as the buried material continues to break down. This technique is especially effective for heavy feeders like tomatoes, pumpkins or corn. For each 3-foot trench, aim for a mix of 1 part nitrogen to 2 parts carbon, keeping everything moist but not soggy. If you have more space, build your pile directly in your garden rows during the off-season. When spring comes, you will be planting directly into freshly made humus. That's the lazy gardener's dream. You're feeding the soil without lifting a finger come planting time. This method produces compost that's biologically richer than anything store-bought. When you let decomposition happen slowly and naturally, the end result isn't just compost. It's living soil. The texture is loose, the smell is earthy, and it's loaded with beneficial microbes, nematodes, and fungal networks that are impossible to replicate in commercial fertilizers. Most gardeners who switch to this method report not only faster plant growth, but also healthier soil structure. The humus binds sandy soils, opens up clay soils, and dramatically improves water retention. You'll also notice that weeds become easier to manage because the soil stays covered and biologically active year-round. One of the best ways to maintain this system is by continually adding to your pile. Instead of collecting scraps in a bucket, simply lift a small corner of your pile, drop them in, and cover them with a handful of dry material. No turning, no mixing, just layering over time. It becomes a living compost factory that never stops working. The lazy gardener's trick is really just nature's way of doing things right. What makes this method so powerful is its simplicity. You're not forcing decomposition, you're guiding it. You're giving nature the materials it needs in the right ratios and letting time, microbes and worms do the work. It's low-effort, high-yield gardening at its best. If you're tired of spending time and money on compost systems that require constant maintenance, try this lazy layering trick. In just a few weeks, you'll see waste turn into the richest soil you've ever worked with, and your plants will prove it. If you found this guide helpful, don't forget to subscribe to Soil Doctor and share this video with fellow gardeners. Let's bring back the wisdom of working with nature instead of against it. Lazy gardening isn't about doing less, it's about doing it smarter. So go ahead, turn your trash into black gold and let your soil do the talking.